All right. Welcome everyone to another podcast session with our high level spotlight sessions. I've got the honor and privilege to bring you Brad Martineau. And if you don't know who this is, he is a legend in the world of automations. I knew about Brad like I want to say 7, 8 years ago when they were in the early stages of launching Sixth Division. And these guys were industry leaders at the time, and they work with plenty of companies like HubSpot, the Infusionsoft, the Keep, the Active Campaigns, and now, of course, High Level is part of their family. Brad, welcome into our podcast, man. We've got a great set of talking points to go through. But first, what's your story? How did you get into the world of digital business?
That's a great, that's a great question. Thank you. It's exciting to be here. So my story goes back. I was actually the sixth employee at Keep back when it was called Infusionsoft. So, and for those of you that are new or don't have context, Keep is like the OG original automation platform. And when I say OG, what I mean is they were around when there was literally no competition for small businesses and automation that didn't exist anywhere. So I've got a front row seat to seeing like, oh, Active Campaign pop up, Entreport pop up, and then High Level, like all the tools pop up, and High Level doing a great job. So I was the sixth employee there as we were building this thing that would kind of start, not really start the industry, but really start automation for small businesses because nobody had tried to take this to the small entrepreneurial business. So I was the sixth employee there. I was there until they were, I think, probably about 150. And then they hit like a quarter where they had to do a round of layoffs. Another like little side note. So the CEO of Keep is my brother-in-law, and the other two founders are my brothers. So I was kind of one of those team members that I was young and not very tactful. So I think I was probably a little bit more annoying as a team member. Like I was good at what I did and I was helpful, but also a little bit raw. Everyone's worked with somebody like that before. So I think we understand what I'm talking about when I describe that. But I was also in that position where I think for everybody else, it was like, well, if they did a round of layoffs, like he would never get laid off. I did. It was rough at the time. And I tell people all the time now, it's like, I'm good with my brothers and with my brother-in-law. Like I don't have any issues with them. And if I could go back into that meeting based on where I am now and what I've learned and knowing everything that I would have to go through, I'd go back and be like, yo, put my name up on the board first, even though I know it's going to suck. Because another little piece of information is been married for 23 years, just celebrated my Michael Jordan anniversary last week. In fact, the red and then
Congrats,
also the red,
congrats,
the custom red blazers, that was all in celebration of the Michael Jordan anniversary.
congrats, man.
Anyway, I like basketball. All right.
Me too.
Side tangent. I had five kids, and my youngest son was born 6 weeks before I got laid off. So I got laid off, did some consulting, like I knew a lot. So I did some consulting and realized I don't want to be a consultant. I want to like build something. And so I stopped doing consulting work. The problem is when you stop working, you stop making money. And like, I'll tell you what, the wife and the kids want to eat food. And so our savings and like my severance ended up running out. And it was April 3rd of 2012, I believe, if I got the date right, where we were going to a Keep event and we were going to present with Sixth Division. We were going to present and we were selling. And I woke up that morning, we had an evening session we were going to sell. And I woke up that morning and my business and my personal accounts were overdrawn. So I still have the emails, and sometimes in presentations, I'll show the actual emails with the actual account balances. They were overdrawn because I'd stopped doing consulting and I was trying to figure out, like anyone that you even said you had an agent, anyone that's done an agency or done working with clients, like you got to kind of figure out the right thing that works for them, but also works for you. We were in the middle of that. I woke up and like, well, crap, I have no money. You want to talk about a boost of confidence when you're about to go sell? It's like, hey, I have no money. I'm that good. It also doubled as like, you better go make something happen. So anyway, we sold some stuff that night. It worked out really well. Started like kind of set the foundation for Sixth Division. And our goal was we wanted to systematize, demystify what it would take for a business to use automation in their client journey. So we did that first in the Keep space, and then as Active Campaign and all the other tools came out, we just expanded our methodology and teaching to that. That's where we ran across each other, more in the Active Campaign space as we started to branch out. And then along the way, we ended up starting a software company, plus this, that builds tools for people that are trying to do automation. And then that's kind of where I sit now, is keeping an eye on what are the new tools that come out. Inevitably, people are going to go jump on those, but then they're still going to run into some hurdles because they got to figure out how to use it. And then what other tools can we create? So my world now, between balancing the kids, still got them, and the wife still got all them. And I coach basketball, and I like to play basketball, but it is coaching and consulting on how to do automation better, faster, easier in your business. and then also creating software tools to be able to do automation and a better client journey, better, faster, and easier. And the whole goal is, whether you're trying to do agency or SaaS, or you've got some other business model that's not one of those two exactly, it's how do I get more clients? How do I make them happier? And how do I do all of that in less time and less energy so that I can make my life be about what I actually want it to be about? So anyway, that's my, whatever that is, 15 years or 20 years in 90 seconds. There you go.
Yeah, well, Brad, I appreciate you sharing the story. I know who you are, obviously, but I think it's important to let the audience know the journey that somebody goes through like yourself, because we see a lot of, service families rise up around high level, similar to Sixth Division. And, there's a ton of people that are watching this that have that hybrid, let me support the fellow agencies and SMBs while I'll build my own SaaS all at the same time. And it's interesting that we came up with the topic of, from multiple overdrawn bank accounts to a multi seven-figure agency and SaaS. I mean, that's the topic we have today for all of you. And one of the things that Brad and I spoke on planning this conversation was the three small hinges that he observed that everyone should understand in building this business. So the first one is saying no and understanding who you really are in the marketplace. Second one is multiplying the human output, talent, and systems. And then third is what happens when a customer actually buys your product or service. Brad, can you take us through the first pillar, saying no and figuring out who you are?
Yeah. So as we were going back and forth on what to talk about, I was like, all right, let's, first I speak on stage. So first it was like, all right, what's the presentation I should do? I'm like, forget that. Let's actually just talk about what are the actual things that matter and that have made a difference for us as we built a multi-seven-figure agency, multi-seven-figure software company. So the first one is the ability to say no. Other ways I would describe this is like, you've got to have glasses on. And the reason why, sometimes when I teach this, I'll say, always wear glasses. And the reason why is if you have glasses and you don't wear them, then everything that you look at's fuzzy. When you put your glasses on, everything gets really, really, really clear. The more clear it is where you're trying to get, what you're trying to accomplish, the easier, faster, and more efficiently you can go do that. It also becomes very clear what your next step should be. So quick story. So Sixth Division, I mentioned I woke up and had no money. I don't know if you remember that part. And then we went and sold that night. And we did a really good job that night. It was like the perfect event. Things worked out really well. There were hiccups in the way. Amex decided to lock up all of our money for 6 months or whatever. But summary is, over the course of the first year, we did 7 figures in our first year. And most people are like, dude, that's awesome. I came across a guy recently and he's like, anytime I hear that, I say, are you okay? And I'm like, that's really good. Because that first year friggin' sucked. All right. Because it was crazy all over the place. We didn't really know what we were doing. We got to the end of the year and like good business owners, we knew we needed to do our annual planning. So we went to my business partner's house. We took 2 days and we did all of our annual planning of what we're going to do for the next year. This was for 2013. And ultimately the big theme was we're going to double, because that's what you do. You double your business. And literally in the last 15 minutes of the day, we're about to leave. And it just sort of like came out of me. I can't even lay claim to this question, but it came out of me and it has become one of the most critical and most powerful questions. I turned to my business partner. I was like, hey, I have a question. And this is going to seem a little bit like, why are you asking this right now after we just spent 2 days? I said, what if we didn't? What if we didn't try to double? And there was like this, like when somebody asks a question or somebody stumbles on something, you're in a conversation, there's like this feeling of like, oh, you should not ignore that. It was one of those like, oh man, what if we didn't? And long story short, what we ended up settling on was, no, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make one more penny than we did last year, but we're going to cut our work schedule in half. And we did that in the last 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden it was like, all those things we planned, chop, 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 because this is the actual focus. And so the ability to say no, which I like better framed, I gave that title just for the record, so I'm not throwing Paul under the bus here, but I gave that title, but I like better framing it as, you ask the question, what if we just did it? So given a goal or an outcome, you have a list of things that you could do. For everything that you say that you could do, you should stop and ask the question before you commit to it, what if we didn't? And unless the answer to the question, what if we didn't, is something, if the answer to that question is, there's no way you'll get to your goal, then you leave it on the board. If it's like, well, probably nothing, then you should take that off the board. Just eliminate it immediately. So this question of like, well, what if we just didn't? And then, so that's like the essence of saying no. And that has become a superpower. We ask it all the time. It's like, cool, those are great ideas and theories, but what if we didn't? And unless you can make a really strong case that not doing that is going to cause us to not reach the objective, then it gets cut immediately. One other point on this that I think is important is it's not just about money. So anytime I'm working with any entrepreneur, the very first thing that I ask them or that I walk them through, it's this concept. I created a tool, I call it the return. A business's first job, most important job, is to give the business owner the return that the business owner wanted when it started. That's the first and foundational job. And most people miss that. And they jump right into, no, I got to make an amazing thing for my clients and deliver a ton of value and get a bunch of clients. Yes, but only if it gives you back the return that you want. Now, that return is not necessarily monetary. In fact, I believe there's only 3 currencies that we have in this life: time, energy, and money. Time is literally hours and minutes and like how much of it goes to work and how much of it do I have for free time or whatever. So time. Energy is what do I do in the time that I'm going to spend in the business? What type of tasks am I responsible for? What type of work do I do? And then the last one is money. That one's pretty easy. It's money. So when we're looking at this idea of given a goal or given an objective, I'm going to come up with a list of things that I could do. The goal ought to be defined in terms of first time, then energy, then money, in that order. If you start with money, you'll compromise on time and energy, even though those are the 2 most important ones that you could actually care about. So you define time, energy, and money. And then you go into your business and you create a business plan. Then you go to decide what are all the things that we can do to hit our business plan, knowing that our business plan was organized in a way that would give us the return we want. And then in all of that, you're constantly asking, what if I didn't do that? What if I just didn't add the extra thing that's not going to make a difference? That's not going to make a difference anyway. So that like core pillar number 1 that was critical to going from the multiple overdrawn bank accounts to a multiple 7-figure agency, multiple 7-figure software company is being really clear, always wearing glasses, really clear about what we're trying to get in terms of time, energy, and money. And then also always constantly asking the question, well, like, what if we just didn't do that? And you'd be surprised how much stuff you can just cut and then how much extra time you have to spend on the stuff that will actually matter in getting you towards a goal that you actually care about.
Yeah, and I think the biggest observation for me is, well, you have the top leadership feeling a certain way of what's the most efficient path to growth. Like, how do we get to that North Star? And time, energy, and the resources behind it obviously is all related around the people in the business. So help us understand, what kind of a team did you build out, and what is the human output on that, and how did you build systems around that? Because I think it's one thing to have the concepts and ideas, is another thing to implement with top down or whatever style you have, but it's help us understand and discover that process.
Yeah. So kind of hierarchically, what we're talking about is I have this vision of what I want with my life, right? And we're defining that in terms of time, energy, and money. Then we create a business plan that on paper will give us the return that we want. And I've got, like, I talk about this and I got videos on my YouTube channel and stuff. We can give links to that or whatever, but we have that. Then what we do is we say, well, what are the strategies or the tactics or the things we want to do to build the business so we can get to the return that we want? Well, guess what? Every strategy or tactic that you're going to do, guess what? A human has to do it. And I know some of you be like, no, AI can do some stuff. Yeah, because the human set it up to make the AI do it. Look, a human is going to be involved in all these things that we're going to go execute. And so I love, like, Alex Hormozi talks about this, I heard him talk about it recently. He's mentioned it several times. He's got a lot of themes that he talks about, but one of them that I love is my brain just went blank. Hold on a second. I got to get back on the point. He talks about constraints. Sorry, my brain went blank. Okay, he talks about, like, every business has a constraint and you should focus on that constraint. And his analogy is, like, if you're deadlifting or doing any sort of like, deadlifting is picking a weight up off the ground, for anyone that doesn't know. He said, if your legs can lift 400 pounds in a deadlift, but your grip can only lift 200 pounds, then you need to work on your grip and stop trying to figure out how to strengthen your legs, because the grip is the constraint. And the idea is, in your business, there's a constraint. It's either you can't handle more clients because your deliveries model is off, or you don't have the people, or sales is the constraint, or leads are the constraint. Underneath all of those, there's this underlying constraint that exists in every business, which is humans and what they can actually get done. The things you want to execute, the strategy you want to execute, have to be done by humans. So that becomes a natural constraint. So one of the things that we focused on was identifying where are most of the humans' time spent in our business. So if that's the underlying constraint that exists in every business, well, where do they get spent most of the time so that we can refine and optimize those constraints so we can get stuff done faster? And we found that there are two main places where human beings, whether it's me as the business owner or whether it's somebody on my team, there's two places where people spend an inordinate amount of time. And if you can dial them in and optimize them, you'll unlock and multiply human output. And the first one is in actually upgrading the client journey that people go through. So this is, I have an idea because I heard someone say I should do an automated webinar. Cool. Somebody has to plan that and implement that. Or I got this idea that I should do this lead magnet, this live training class, or I should do this membership. Great. Somebody has to plan, organize, and then actually go build that so that it's up and running. So that process of how we take ideas in, how we turn them into an actual plan that somebody can go do, and then how we get them up and running into software, but like in a way like automation, but in a way where it's like running, not in a way where it's like puttering along and it's like I'm trying to fix the whole thing the whole way. So that process, our entire business sixth division was optimized around that process, and we realized how important it was. But that would be one. If I were talking to any entrepreneur, it's like, if you want to get this dialed, know that your whole business is built to get somebody's eyeballs, get their attention, turn them into a lead, turn them into a client, make them happy. That chain. The faster you can take ideas and update that client journey, the faster you're going to get to success. But most organizations suck at that. So that would be one process in the business, a constraint for human output, which is you've got to have a process that is organized, that is dialed in, that is efficient, that is effective, that everybody on the team understands to make that happen. So that was one big area where humans would spend time, and we wanted to multiply human output. So we created a system. It's what we do with all of our clients. It's what we use internally so that we don't waste time on that. The other big bucket where again, humans spend an inordinate amount of time is in actually executing a piece of the client journey. And what I mean by that is it's one step to design it and build it. It's another thing to be like, no, I'm the sales rep. Like I have to get on a phone call and do the thing with the prospect. Or I'm the delivery fulfillment rep. I take a new client. I've got to go do work. I've got to follow up, or I've got to check in, look at something, update some forms or whatever. And we realize that is the other big place where humans spend a ridiculous amount of time and energy. So there's no reason why we wouldn't identify every single place in the client journey where a human has to do something. And then we would not systematize and streamline the crap out of that so that it took the least amount of time. I don't want my sales reps having to go hunt for who they should call. I don't want them having to go to 45 places to update a record. I want it to be like, yo, call these people, click this button, call the next person, click this button. So we just went and found every place where somebody was doing something as a part of the client journey. And then we said, systematize that. I want it to be like clockwork. That thing runs super, super easy. Once we got those two things dialed in, what it did is in all the leftover time, we were having really valuable conversations about, well, which idea should we implement? We don't have to spend time talking about how to implement it. It's like, no, we should do that one because our constraint in our client journeys, we don't have enough leads. So let's go do that one. And here's how we're going to do it. And now we have extra time to actually think about the strategy, or, hey, we should systematize that process better so that that person can be more efficient so we can leverage them over here. So we really, really focused on those two key areas of where humans spend their time. And it was a massive multiplier in what we were able to get done with the people that we had. And like, it's not like we had hundreds of people. We were not raising money. This was small, scrappy, bootstrapped. We've never taken on any money to be able to grow it. So we had to be really, really efficient and effective in where we spent the time of the actual people. So that's that one.
And I assume you had enterprise type of clients, and then you had your regular assembly line type of clients that are easy to fulfill. Like I'm sure you had different types and sizes of projects from what I remember from Sixth Division. And that also creates a lot of different strain, right?
Yeah, we definitely had different size clients. We'd have some that are like, I want like 4 spots or whatever. And then we had some smaller ones. So yeah, we 100%.
Variation create any difficulties to implement this philosophy of empowerment?
So for us, no. And I'll tell you why. We had different sizes of clients. But a part of the upgrade to the client experience is that we're like, this is how it works to work with us. And we're going to take you through the same process. So here's the dirty little secret. I don't care if you're an figure business. I don't care if you're a multiple 8-figure business. I don't care if we had a guy come in one time that was like, I have an idea and I don't actually even have my Infusionsoft account yet. Like, all right, cool. So here's the deal. Every single business has a thing that it sells that delivers value, that gets wrapped up in experience, and they're trying to sell it to people that have pain, have a desire to solve that pain and money to pay for it. And then it's just an exchange. I don't care how big you are, how small you are. That's it. That's all that's there. If you're bigger, it means that you found people that have deeper pockets with more pain and more desire, and you have a smaller number of clients that pay you a ridiculous amount of money, or you found an audience of people where there's a ton of them that will pay you money, and then you deliver something that's valuable enough with a good enough experience that the word gets out, and then you make a lot of those transactions happen. The key, though, is every single business that ever exists has to go get people's attention, turn them into leads, turn them into someone that wants to have a sales convo, turn them into a client, and then make them happy. So whether you're selling a $100,000 service package, whether you're selling $1 million agency contract, whether you're selling a $29 software subscription, the process of how we would deliver with our clients, the process is the same. The only question is, what's most important for you? Where do we start? And then we're going to go design the experience, and then we're going to go implement whatever software it is that you happen to use. So for us, I guess that's actually, you pulled out a third element of this human output that we did. That was very, I see why you run these. I see why you run these. The third element of this, because we worked with a lot of our clients that had agencies, they assumed that, well, people come in and everything's custom. Everything we did was custom to the client, but the process we took them through was exactly the same. How we worked with them month over month was exactly the same. It was just that when we had the conversation with client A, we would focus on whatever they needed. When we had it with client B, we'd focus on whatever they needed. And maybe client B had bought 2 spots with us, so they were doing more work, but it was the same process. They got the same experience and everything the same. So for us, it made it really easy because we were just moving people along the assembly line. And because we had streamlined all the places where humans interacted with our clients, then our humans, our coaches, our resources, we could actually just be humans and actually coach. Rather than having to double, it's like, oh, and then I got to remember this process and I got to track all this. Like, no, I'm just going to show up and like, yo, what are we talking about today? That, all right, let me actually go coach you on this because I don't have to spend time worrying about the process. So yeah, that third layer of saving time is that you can make custom projects, custom things happen in a non-custom client journey. It can be like rinse and repeat. The details are just defined in there. And we've worked with a lot of agencies to help them do that. And it's like, oh, I already know what we're going to build. I just don't know that what color you're going to tell me you want this to be, right? So it's like you can create that for sure.
Yeah, it's like a hybrid of productizing services to create essentially an assembly line without taking away from the true quality of the product, right?
Yeah, you don't. Most people, when they hear this, they're like, "Oh, you're going to make this like robotic, or the experience is going to suffer, or whatever." It's like, no, it actually gets better. In fact, I did an interview with the guy Greg Hickman. And we talked about this process because he went through and he actually turned his business into something similar. He's got it on his YouTube channel, and I'm about to post it on mine too. That could be a link to get people to actually walk through. Yeah. Okay, so you got Greg. Yeah, so we walked through the process and some of the thought patterns behind that. So if anybody's like, that sounds dope, we can give you, it's a resource just on a YouTube channel that could help with that as well. So yeah, 100%.
So Brad, what happens when someone buys? Let's say they're in your world. They become a client of some kind. What is that third pillar that took you from, you know, the journey, the discussion we're talking about?
Yeah. So the third pillar, where we talk about going from multiple overdrawn bank accounts to a multiple 7-figure agency and SaaS. The third pillar is not actually about what we do. Well, that's not entirely true. But the reason why I put this one on here is because it's really, really valuable for people that are growing their business to recognize that the most important experience in the entire client journey, the most important experience is what happens as soon as somebody gives you money. It is the onboarding and then the fulfillment and delivery, and maybe not for the reason that people think. This is not one of those like, hey, I want warm fuzzies because I make my clients happy or whatever. No, this is like how to make money. And the key is this. When that process is dialed in, know that before that process, you've got somebody who's convincing people to give you money, and they're putting them into some world. If that world is not dialed, like a machine, then inevitably the person that's doing the selling is going to have some doubt about what the experience is going to be that the person they're talking to is about to get into, which means they're not going to be selling the exact same way. Here's what I know for a fact. If the process after somebody buys from you is dialed, and you know that when somebody comes in, they're going to come out the other side and be happy and they're going to get results. You will sell differently, or your sales team will sell differently. There's a different level of confidence. There's a different level of like, I'm going to push a little bit harder where it's appropriate because I know what's going to happen because it's dialed in. And when your sales team, you or your sales reps or whoever it is that actually runs the sales function, when they're confident and they're churning out these clients that then go into this machine that make them happy, whoever's job it is to tee up sales conversations, they're way more confident and they're going to be way more, again, appropriately aggressive when they go out to pursue the people that they want to put into the sales conversation. So if without knowing anything about anybody's business, they said, hey, where should I start? Because we all know that there's like a million ideas of all the things that we should do in our client journey. Without knowing anything, if I were to say, where do I start? I'd be like, how confident are you that when somebody signs up with you, there's a streamlined process that happens every single time that will guarantee that they're happy, that they're amazing, and that they're easy to work with? And if it's not like a resounding yes, start there, because that will have cascading impact. So for us, we realized that early on. It's like, I don't ever want a client to be like, I had a bad experience with 6th Division. I want that to be dialed in. So we focused on that. And immediately our sales team became more confident. We started to close more. And immediately the marketing team became more confident and they wanted to drive more leads. So the first piece of why I put this particular bullet point on there is this journey from multiple overdrawn to like multiple 7 figures, whatever, is because that's the place where people should start. And I don't know how much time we have left. I do have a couple of resources and concepts around what I think you should do when somebody starts, but like those are free too. We could just put those in the show notes if we don't have time to talk about them, but there are some really important things to do to make sure that we tee that up the right way.
Feel free to share as much as you want. My thought process is to invite the right conversation, and because you know our audience, you're part of our family, you've seen other platforms and their ecosystems as well, so the behavior is probably pretty similar across the board, between digital citizens, whether they're a marketer, copywriter, automation guy, influencer, course creators. Like, there's some synergies across the board that you can impact, and that's why I think the conversation is important. Can you help us understand what it took to understand these pillars? Like, what are the business development thoughts you had in your mind to get to this structure? I mean, I'm sure it took years. I'm sure it took a lot of tears and sweat and equity and time. But help us.
The chuckle was me thinking of all of that as you said that. So a lot of, I make this joke, except it's not really a joke. Anytime I'm with clients, I'm like, look, any good idea you ever hear from me is because I beat my head against that wall at least 5 times. Like, I wish I was smarter and I'm trying to get there, but it's like, no, I'm stubborn. I'm gonna, okay, fine, I guess this is the way that it is. So definitely a lot of like trial, error, learning, etc. But the mindset underneath it, that led to coming to these conclusions. It's actually what's on my hat. I don't know if you can see it if you're watching, but it's dollar. So it's also on the thing behind me. So this is what I call the process of progress. And it's the process of how we get to success in any aspect of our life. And I put it on a hat so I'd look at it every single day when I looked in the mirror. And so what happened first is I just came to this realization one day. I was like, you know what? I'm not always right. And that actually sounds kind of funny, and I say it out loud. But a lot of times we go through our lives like we're always right. And we don't ever stop and consider, like, you know what? Like, cool, I'm in my mid-40s. You might be in your mid-40s. But bro, there is so much of life and business that you haven't even touched yet. You might not actually know what you're talking about, right? Like, you might be like the couple that's about to get married, and they're talking about what it's like to be married in a room full of people who have been married already for 10 or 20 years. And everyone's like, that's cute. What you think, right? So like, there was just this, it was like an epiphany. It was like, bro, you might actually be wrong. So it would be better for you to pay attention. And so dollar stands for, there's 4 elements: decide, act, learn, repeat. When you decide to start with ruthless practicality. When you act with fearless imperfection. When you learn with scoreboard humility. And then when you repeat as fast as you can. The learn one is where it started. What it started as is, all right, there's a way that like success in business works. There's a formula, and it can take a lot of different variations, but there are core underlying principles that are just true. And if I don't have success, guess what that means? So learn with scoreboard humility means look at the scoreboard. If you don't have the success that you want in an area, if I don't, it means I'm doing it wrong. Be humble enough to admit I might not know the answer, I might be wrong. And so for me, it set me on this path of, all right, well, what are the actual true governing principles of success? And then for me, I think of things in terms of like foundation and layers, like I'm building a brick wall or a building. I want to go figure out what the very base fundamental truth is first. And so for me, it's like, all right, well, the very base one is exactly what we talked about first. It's very easy to build a business that you wake up one day and unfortunately have, rather than building the business that you want. And it's like, well, the key is, do you actually know what you want? And then the next step, as I was exploring that, is it's not just money. There's 3 different things that actually matter. So I just looked at, there's only 3. It's time, energy, money. That's all we have to spend. And I should know what I want ahead of time so that every other decision I make at the very base of this whole plan actually is leading towards the thing that I say that I want. So that led to that first one. Is like, okay, that's true. I could have any conversation with anybody. And what I try to get to with the learn element is it irrefutably true? Like that, nobody's going to convince me otherwise. It's time, energy, money. And if you know what that is with clarity, you'll be way more likely to actually get it, period. That's just at the very foundation. Then the next one is, go ahead, somebody debate for me that the single biggest constraint in every business is not human output. That's just what it is. So it's like, so for me, the learn was, let me go figure out, oh yeah, we got humans. If we waste time as humans, we slow down our output. So we should figure out how to make that better. Where are the most important, biggest chunks of time spent? Upgrading the client journey, actually executing the client journey. The next one after that would be in meetings and rhythms and planning. And that's a whole separate conversation, but that'd be the third one. And then the other one is, okay, well, what is actually the most important experience? And for me, if you're in a business and you can sell a bunch of stuff, but you can't deliver for crap and you don't make people that are happy and you don't deliver good value, you're not in business, you're a fraud. On the other side, if you make people happy, deliver great value, but you can't close or sell anything, then you're a charity. I want to be in the middle. But I got really clear that like being able to deliver the value that I promised put me into business. So that's the first thing. And then I happen to observe the confidence level of God. So for me, what I'm doing in every aspect of my life is I'm trying to learn with scoreboard humility. Do I have what I want? No? Then you don't know something yet, and you should probably go figure it out and then make that be a core pillar. And so as I learn, then I go back up to decide, all right, well, let me make a decision of what I'm going to go do, and then let me act. And then I'm going to stop and be like, well, did it work? No. All right, then I didn't have it figured out right. I got to start the cycle over again. The faster I can do that, the faster I can come up with some of these core principles that will just guide how I'm going to make decisions. Once I'm like, no, that's it. That's true. That doesn't move anymore. The rest of these, I'm still kind of testing through this dollar cycle. Like, no, that one's good. This one, maybe, maybe not. So that's how my brain looks at it and tries to get to some of these principles and tries to do it faster than what I used to do at the beginning, which is, no, I'm just going to keep going because I'm right. And then at some point I get beaten into submission. I'm like, okay, maybe I was wrong. I try to invite it, I guess is what I'm saying.
I love it, man. To be honest, like I think this was one of the most profound discussions I've ever had on this podcast. And
oh, sweet.
I feel,
do I get a badge? I need like a gold medal, or do I get a badge or a medal with that on it? I mean, you got to hook. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I mean, I feel like you know, in a sense, we have similar paths. Like I think first 6 or 7, I think I'm first 8 maybe of the employees at high level, and we're at 900.
Okay.
And everything you've said is clearly down the journey that we went through, and which is why I feel like it's profound, because when you're in it, you see the picture versus when you're not in it, and it's, you know, somebody that's watching this could just feel like we're just thinking in theories, and in reality is you're defining the sweat and the tears that we go through to build this thing that no one else sees.
Yeah,
so I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, just real quick on that. If there is somebody watching who thinks that what we've been talking about is theory, or as I call it, cotton candy, we just did a quarterly planning for my software company today. And about 15 times I said, what if we just didn't do that? And one of the main priorities is that we have some new team members that have to learn the process by which we define and document the client journey. That came out of today. It's a project in our quarterly plan. You guys have to know this because you have to use this process. Another one was there's a couple of spots where humans have to interact, and they're getting cleaned up and they're getting upgraded. And we've got 2 projects to go review and refresh and revisit the client onboarding experience. None of this is theoretical or cotton candy. This is literally what I focus on and do every single day in the business. So whether you're like, oh, that'd be great to get there because I'm only doing, I got like $10,000 in annual revenue or $100,000 in annual revenue. This is not something you get to do because you figured something else out. This is the level of focus, and these are the things to focus on to get you there. Remember, these are the things that took me from not $10,000 in annual revenue. It took me from negative in my business and in my bank account, okay, to where I am now is actually doing this. So I'm glad you brought that up because that's really important. This is not theoretical. This is literally tactical, in the weeds. This is what you should actually be doing.
I love this, Brad. So I'm going to leave you with my last question, which I wasn't even planning on this, but I think it's important. After all this, the infrastructure of what we're laying out in the principles of the strategy, the supply chain of the execution, and then the outcome that we're thinking about, what exactly is the right pace of growth? Because growing too fast is dangerous. Going too slow is, like you said, charity. Like, so what is scale at speed look like?
Okay, that's a great question. So, and what I would say, so the answer is it depends. Let me add some color to that a little bit. Growing too fast is dangerous. Growing too slow is not a charity. My comment about charity just means if you are really good, but you can't get people to give you money, but you're still doing stuff for people, you're a charity. Stop being a charity and figure out how to freaking sell. It's what you have to do to be in business. Okay, now back to your question. So what's the proper pace of growth? The answer is it depends on what you define in your return document. So I don't actually, so growing too fast is dangerous only because, so T-O-O means in excess. In excess of what? Growing too fast. You can only grow too fast if you're growing in excess of what you've defined in your return. So I'll give you a real example. For me, I have 5 kids. My youngest is 14. My oldest is 21. And I've got 3 in high school, 2 that have moved out of the house. My youngest son plays basketball. He's really, really good. For me, I know for a fact that I could grow plus this, plus our other software tools that we're rolling out, as well as 6th division. I know I could grow it way faster than we are right now. But what would the trade-off be? It would be the time and the energy. And for the next 4 to 5 years of my life, I don't care how big. Okay, I do. I want them to grow. And I'm doing everything I can while I'm in the office to make them grow. But my priority is not that I turn them into an 8-9 figure company or whatever. My priority is I want to be as present as possible to be able to go raise my kids. That's my return. I'm not saying you should want that, right? So for every one of you that's like me, that's like, oh, wait, I can choose that. Yeah, you just choose what you want, and then you design the business to be the business that will give you what you want, okay? This is another plug for go watch the return video. We'll put a link in there. It'll clear that up. But for every one of you that's just like that, that's like, hey, I just got a permission slip to actually build the business that I want, there are equally a number of you that are going to be like, I don't have any kids. Like, I'm not even married. I want to grind. Grind. Like, go for it. It's what do you want to build? So the appropriate level of growth actually that question can only be answered if you can tell me what your target time, energy, and money is, and that you have it documented and defined so that all of your decisions operate around that. It's the only way to actually answer that question. For me, it's as fast as I can within the time that I've allocated to be in the office working, because up until 9 o'clock, I'm coaching a high school basketball team, and starting at 3 o'clock, which it'll be 4 o'clock today, so in just a little bit, I'm coaching my son's junior high team. He'll be in high school next year, and then I'll be coaching high school afterwards. Then I'm with my other kids after school. So I will do everything I can to grow the business in that time period. And then as fast as they grow is great. Too fast is when I've got to wake up before basketball practice to try to do a bunch of stuff, or I've got to tell them that I can't be at basketball practice, or I end up staying later, or I end up like when that's all out of whack, that's too fast because it violates what I've defined in my return. This is, I will warn you, this is the hardest thing to decide as an entrepreneur, is to decide how much is enough for me to be content right now, because we think that means that we can't go get more. It's not true. But if you were to stop and say, like, I'm really clear that I could never grow any of my companies, I could make the exact same amount of money that I make right now, and I would never be somebody you'd read about who's like ridiculously wealthy and who drives all these fancy cars or whatever. I love the house I live in, I love the car I drive, and I can do everything that I practically and actually want to do. I'm good. And I'm still going to try to do more, but I'm good. And what I found with most people, when they actually get clear on what they actually want, they're usually like 1 or 2 steps away from it, but they feel like, and they're living their life like they're 100 steps away from it. Like they're way behind in this race. It's like, you're not Actually, you ever seen that meme? We'll finish with this. You ever seen that meme or that video clip where you got the kid who's in the water and like screaming bloody murder? Like the kid's probably like 3 or something. Like he's drowning. It's the end of the world. And then like a sibling or a mom comes over and like stands him up and he's like, oh, that's what I feel like. And I was 100% like that. Most entrepreneurs are like that. They're like, I'm behind. I got to go. I got to grind. It's like, yo, what do you actually want? I want this. Oh, you already have it. Or just do this, and then you already have it. And then you're good. And then it doesn't mean you stop. You got to keep going. But it's like I can actually relax. I can go live my life and methodically then be building my business. So anyway, that would be the answers. It depends. If you don't have a return to find, you cannot answer the question, what's too fast or what's too slow, because you don't actually know. You haven't done the work to know what you need to know to actually answer that question.
I love it. I'm tempted to see if we can schedule another conversation. Do another episode, in the next couple of months, man. This is really insightful. I really appreciate you stopping by and telling us your thoughts, sharing, and being generous in what you're providing. Looking forward to it, man. This is exciting.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, we'll book another one in a little bit. That'll be awesome.
Awesome. If you're watching this episode for any reason and don't have a high level account, if you look at the links below, there could be a 30-day trial. I welcome you with wide arms into the family, and looking forward to serving you. Let us know if there's anything we can do. Thanks for watching another episode of High Level Spotlight Sessions.